Imagine walking into an incredibly hostile room where literally everyone around you holds all the apparent power.
Right, like a room where every single eye is just glued to you. And, absolutely none of them are friendly. Even the architecture is designed to make you feel small.
Yeah, exactly. You're completely surrounded. Everyone else has the home field advantage. They've got the sheer numbers, the structural authority.
Oh, the tension would be unbearable.
So thick you could cut it with a knife, right? But somehow, despite all the terrible odds stacked against you, you are the one in total, unshakable control of the whole situation.
Which is a deeply unnatural feeling for most of us, I mean, let's be honest. But it's actually the ultimate psychological power play.
Right.
Because you're entirely at their mercy physically, but mentally. You completely own the room.
And that specific, like, electric tension is exactly the energy we're unpacking today. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a really fascinating topic.
It totally is, because today we're looking at the legendary story of Hanuman and the burning of Lanka,
Yeah.
or, the Hanuman or Lanka Dahan Kikatha. But we're looking at it through a very specific lens.
Yeah, we're really extracting a framework from this ancient narrative. We're treating it as this profound case study on power dynamics, stress management, and, well, the clash between blinding ego and grounded humility.
Because the stakes here map so perfectly onto the conflicts you and I face today.
Oh, 100%. The mechanics of ego just do not change.
Right. Whether you're dealing with a mythological demon king or just like an incredibly toxic boss, it's the same energy.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this setup. To really understand the climax of this showdown, we have to examine the intense power dynamic established in the very first scene.
Setting the stage is crucial here.
Right, so picture the royal court of Lanka. Ravan, the 10-headed demon king, is sitting on this massive golden throne. He is surrounded by these incredibly powerful demons, and the court is completely uncomfortably silent.
And that silence is heavy, you know? It's the silence of absolute fear and subjugation. Ravan rules entirely through intimidation.
Just pure physical dominance.
Yeah. Even the Golden Throne isn't just furniture. It's a calculated tool designed to elevate him physically and psychologically above everyone else.
Which makes the contrast so wild. Because standing right in front of him is Hanuman, the son of the wind, the messenger of Sri Ram.
Right.
And here is the detail that completely stopped me in my tracks. Hanuman is physically tied up.
Yeah, he's a captive.
He has respectfully accepted the bonds of this supreme divine weapon, the Brahmastra. Yet, despite being tied up, he stands entirely fearless. Ravan actually laughs at him.
Just dripping with arrogance.
Totally. He arrogantly demands to know who this monkey is and on whose power he's relying to cause so much chaos in his city.
It's just this brilliant juxtaposition of perceived power versus actual power. Ravan calculates his authority based entirely on what he can see.
Right, the tangible stuff.
Exactly. He sees the physical ropes, he looks at his heavily armed guards, he feels the gold under his hands, and he just assumes he has total leverage.
So it's this massive illusion of control. It actually reminds me of, well, imagine being a junior analyst called into a hostile deposition.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You're sitting across from a team of aggressive, highly paid lawyers in this glass boardroom. They're leaning back in their expensive chairs, smirking, just trying to rattle you.
Trying to make you feel incredibly small.
Right. But you have the irrefutable data right there in your folder. You know the truth.
Yeah.
So you refuse to sweat. You just stand there, totally calm.
You know something they don't.
Exactly. But there's a massive contradiction with Hanuman here that I want to dig into. He is physically bound, but psychologically, he is completely free.
Well, to understand that freedom, we really have to look at why he is bound in the first place.
Okay.
Because Hanuman didn't get overpowered by Ravan's guards. He actually chose to let himself be tied up.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Out of reverence for the Brahmastra itself, which is a supreme universal weapon. So he isn't submitting to Ravan at all. He's submitting to a higher universal law.
Oh, wow. Out of respect for the divine.
Precisely. That is a crucial distinction. Hanuman has completely uncoupled his confidence from his immediate physical circumstances.
So Ravan thinks his guards did this amazing job, but Hanuman has essentially just allowed himself to be escorted into the room.
Yeah, he just went along with it. He knows that his physical state in that room has absolutely no bearing on his actual internal strength.
That is wild.
And Ravan's arrogance, which is so perfectly symbolized by his laughter and that ostentatious golden throne, that's actually his fatal blind spot. He can only process the physical reality.
Man, when your confidence is uncoupled from your environment, you become virtually untouchable.
You really do.
Which brings us to Hanuman's response to Ravan's arrogant interrogation. Because Ravan demands to know whose power Hanuman is relying on. He basically wants to play a status game.
Right. He expects Hanuman to cower or, perhaps to boast about his own strength in some futile attempt to defend himself.
Because that's what Ravan would do.
Exactly. Ravan fights other egos all day long. He knows exactly how to break someone who is desperately trying to protect their own pride.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Hanuman doesn't boast at all.
Not even a little bit.
He doesn't puff out his chest or list off his incredible physical feats, even though he literally has the strength to destroy everyone in that room.
Right. Easily.
Instead, he just simply states that Sri Ram resides in his heart, and that he is merely a servant of Ram whose power literally supports the entire universe.
He completely removes himself from the center of the narrative. It's brilliant.
I mean, it is, but I have to push back on this strategy a little bit, or at least play devil's advocate here.
Sure, go for it.
If I am surrounded by enemies in a hostile room, my first instinct would definitely be to project absolute dominance.
Of course. That's the natural human reaction.
Right. Wouldn't it be far more intimidating to brag about your own strength? To say, like, look what I just did to your guards, watch your step.
You'd think so, yeah.
Deflecting all the credit to a leader who isn't even in the room feels like such a vulnerable move. Why does that actually give him more power?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it completely neutralizes Ravan's only weapon.
How so?
And think about it. If Hanuman boasts about his own strength, it instantly becomes a measuring contest of egos. It becomes Hanuman versus Ravan, and Ravan's ego thrives on that exact kind of friction.
Oh, I see.
But by saying, hey, this isn't about me, I am just a servant backed by the fundamental truth of the universe, Hanuman makes himself impossible to attack on a psychological level.
Okay, that makes me think of ego as a massive, rigid target painted on your chest.
Oh, I love that visual.
Right, because if you walk into a room trying to prove how great you are giving everyone a giant, solid bullseye to shoot at.
Exactly. You give them something to hit.
But humility, like true, grounded humility, is like water or wind. Ravan can swing his sword at it all day long, he can hurl insults, but he can't damage it because there's absolutely nothing solid to strike.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Hanuman basically becomes a perfect, frictionless vessel for his message.
Frictionless, I like that.
And this triggers a massive psychological short circuit in Ravan. We're looking at a classic case of narcissistic injury here.
Because he's not getting the reaction he needs.
Right. Ravan's entire worldview relies on people either fearing him or fighting him for dominance. When Hanuman just refuses to play the status game, it doesn't just anger Ravan, it threatens his entire understanding of reality.
And Hanuman doesn't just stop at deflecting the credit either. He does the unthinkable.
Oh, he really pushes it.
He offers Ravan an ultimatum, like a final chance for peace. He tells Ravan, return Mother Sita for your own welfare.
Which is just incredible.
He is actually giving this terrifying demon king unsolicited advice on how to save himself.
It is a masterclass in ultimate diplomacy, rooted in this concept of the true servant.
Right.
Because a true servant doesn't act out of self-interest or a desire for personal glory. They act purely as an extension of their higher purpose.
So it's not about him proving he's the bigger guy.
Exactly. Hanuman offers peace, not because he's afraid to fight, but because his purpose is to resolve the situation, not to escalate it for his own amusement.
You literally can't insult someone who genuinely doesn't care about their own status.
You really can't.
And the reaction in the room proves this strategy works. After Hanuman offers this peaceful way out, the demons in the court fall dead silent.
You could hear a pin drop.
They start exchanging nervous glances. Even the monsters know something fundamental has just shifted.
They recognize the truth when it enters the room, even if it's spoken quietly. But this is where we see the tragic self-destructive flaw of Ravan.
The ego rears its head again.
Yeah, arrogance simply cannot accept the truth, no matter how plainly it is presented, if that truth requires admitting fault.
Right, because the demons in the room feel the truth. But Ravan's ego is so fragile, so incredibly dependent on his image of absolute power, that he just cannot back down.
Accepting Hanuman's advice would mean admitting he was wrong to kidnap Sita in the first place.
And to a blindingly egotistical mind, being wrong is a fate literally worse than destruction.
Ravan would literally rather watch his world burn than admit a mistake.
Which leads directly to a catastrophic miscalculation. Because Ravan is furious. He refuses the peaceful ultimatum, calls Hanuman a fool, and decides he needs to teach him a public lesson.
A very public, very humiliating lesson.
Right. And because he operates entirely on ego and humiliation, he orders Hanuman's tail to be set on fire.
It's a deeply symbolic choice of punishment, really. He wants to burn the symbol of the monkey's pride, to publicly shame him.
The sequence that follows is honestly almost comedic in its logistical nightmare.
Oh, it really is.
Think about the sheer absurdity of what the demons face here. They are frantically scrambling around the court. They bring cloth, they bring oil, they bring ghee to wrap around the tail.
And it just isn't enough.
No. Miraculously, as they try to bind it, Hanuman's tail just keeps growing longer and longer. So they keep bringing more supplies, basically stripping the entire city of its resources, just trying to execute this one petty punishment.
The problem expands proportionately to their desperate attempts to control it.
It's the exact anatomy of a compounding error. It's so much like a modern-day cover-up.
That is so true.
You see this in corporate scandals or political crises all the time. A leader makes a mistake, their ego won't let them admit it, so they deploy resources to cover it up.
Yep.
But the act of covering it up creates a new vulnerability, which requires a bigger cover-up. And suddenly you've expended 10 times the resources.
You're just digging a deeper hole.
They are literally draining the city's oil and cloth taxing their own infrastructure just to try and win an argument with one messenger.
Oh.
The fallout is exponentially larger than if Ravan had just accepted the truth in the first place.
It perfectly highlights the sunk cost fallacy driven by ego. Ravan is so committed to this public humiliation that he can't see, he's basically bankrupting his own city's resources to achieve it.
It's madness.
And the poetic justice here is profound. Ravan tries to use fire, which is this destructive, consuming element, to assert dominance.
Right.
But it takes only a single spark and the dynamic flips entirely. Hanuman breaks free and suddenly the entire golden city of Lanka is engulfed in flames.
The imagery is incredibly vivid. Mansions burn, palaces burn.
Yeah.
But the narrative explicitly makes a point that goes far beyond just the physical architecture.
Yes, very much so.
It makes it clear that what is truly burning is Ravan's pride.
The physical burning of the Golden City and the metaphorical burning of Ravan's arrogance are inextricably linked.
They're the same thing, essentially.
Exactly. That golden throne, the glittering palaces, the massive walls, they were physical manifestations of Ravan's ego. He built his entire identity on the wealth and perceived invulnerability of Lanka.
So the very tool he chose to humiliate his captive becomes the tool that reduces his own empire to ash.
It's brilliant irony.
When Hanuman sets it ablaze, he isn't just destroying buildings. He is actively dismantling the false reality that Ravan's ego had constructed. The fire consumes the illusion of absolute power.
It is the ultimate consequence of an unchecked ego. It inevitably creates the very conditions for its own destruction.
But, while the destruction is massive and rages all across Lanka, the fire is not totally indiscriminate.
No, it's not.
There are specific exceptions in the narrative, which I just found completely fascinating.
This is a crucial pivot in the story, for sure. Amidst this massive, chaotic inferno, we learn that two very specific places remain completely untouched by the flames.
Mother Sita's location, Ashok Vatika, and the House of Vibhishan. They don't even get singed.
Right.
And there is a very specific reason given for this. The text says, "Where there is Dharma, there is the Lord's grace."
This detail reveals the deeper moral architecture of the framework we are discussing. The fire wasn't just some chaotic natural disaster,
It had a target.
Exactly. It was a purifying force, targeting the constructs of ego. Dharma, in this context, refers to righteous duty, truth, and alignment with a higher moral order. Sita, of course, represents absolute devotion and purity.
But Vibhishan is a really interesting inclusion here, because he's Ravan's own brother, sitting right there in the demon court.
He is.
So for a modern listener who might not know his backstory, how does a demon in Lanka end up with a fireproof house?
Well, because Dharma isn't about where you are or who your family is. It's about how you act.
Okay.
Vibhishan represents the sole voice of righteous truth within Ravan's inner circle. Earlier in the narrative, he had actually urged Ravan to return Sita and avoid this conflict entirely.
So he spoke up.
He spoke truth to power even when it was deeply unpopular.
Wow. So Ravan couldn't handle Hanuman's truth, but he also ignored Vibhishan's truth long before that even happened. So Dharma acts as this literal internal compass that provides an external protective force field against the consequences of ego. When the structures built by arrogance collapse, the spaces built on truth remain standing.
It tells us that while the fallout from a destructive, egotistical leader can be massive and wide-reaching, it ultimately consumes itself.
Right.
Those who remain grounded in truth, who maintain their integrity even in a toxic environment like Lanka, are ultimately insulated from that specific kind of spiritual and moral destruction.
So what does this all mean for us when the dust finally settles? Because let's look at what Hanuman does next, and this might be the most challenging part of the whole framework to actually apply to our own lives.
It's definitely a tough pill to swallow.
The city is in ashes. The invincible Ravan has been thoroughly humiliated. Hanuman has achieved a victory that will be sung about for millennia.
I mean, from a purely strategic standpoint, he has essentially conquered the city. Most people in that position would plant a flag, demand a crown, and declare themselves the new king.
Right. But it seems like the only way to survive massive success without it destroying you is to immediately detach from the outcome. Because Hanuman has zero arrogance afterward. Zero.
None at all.
He just goes to Ashokvatika, respectfully bows to Sita, crosses the ocean, and returns to Sri Ram's feet. He takes absolutely no credit for the victory.
It's amazing.
How do we apply that mindset? Because I'll be honest, if I achieve even a fraction of massive success in my life, if I single-handedly took down a rival empire, my first instinct is to update my LinkedIn profile, demand a promotion, and make sure everyone knows I did it.
Right. It is the most natural human instinct in the world to claim the reward for our actions. We want the validation.
Totally.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the core thesis of this framework is revealed right here at the end. The mark of true power is dedicating every victory to your higher purpose, rather than claiming it for your own ego.
He knew the difference between the core mission and the byproduct of the mission. His mission was service to Ram and finding Sita. Burning Lanka to the ground was just a byproduct of that true goal.
Exactly that. When you tie your identity to a massive success, when you start telling yourself, hey, I am the one who burned Lanka, I am the genius who closed the deal, I am the savior of this company,
Yeah.
you are immediately building your own golden throne. You are stepping into the exact same ego prep that destroyed Ravan.
Oh, man. You become rigid again. You paint that massive bullseye back on your own chest.
Yes. Hanuman remains truly free because he immediately surrenders the victory. He says, this was Ram's power, not mine.
Wow.
By refusing to own the glory, he ensures that the glory can never own him. He protects himself from becoming the very thing he just defeated.
By refusing to own the glory, he ensures the glory can never own him. That is profound. It completely reframes how we should view our own successes, our talents, and our moments of triumph.
It really does.
It isn't about diminishing your own abilities. Hanuman clearly knows he's highly capable. I mean, he knows he just set a city on fire.
Right, he's not pretending to be weak.
Exactly. But it is about where you direct the credit and what purpose those abilities actually serve.
And that is the ultimate contrast this story forces us to examine. Ravan had immense power, wealth, and structural authority, but he used it entirely to serve and protect his own fragile ego.
Which inevitably led to his absolute destruction.
Yep. While Hanuman had immense power, but he used it to serve a higher truth, which made him unshakable, invincible, and immortal in the hearts of millions. It is the constructive power of humility versus the destructive, compounding error of pride.
What an incredible journey this framework takes us on. We started in that silent, tense throne room, where all the power seemed to be concentrated in the hands of an arrogant king on a golden chair.
A false sense of power.
Right. We watched a masterclass in diplomacy and emotional detachment, and we ended with a burning city, a shattered illusion, and a quiet messenger simply returning to his duty, entirely untouched by his own success.
It constantly asks us to check our own internal compass. Are we operating out of a desperate need to protect our image, or are we operating in service of our true responsibilities?
That's the real question. And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something to explore on your own that builds on the mechanics of ego we've discussed today.
It's a really important takeaway.
We talked heavily about how Ravan's pride was the real fuel that burned his golden city. He simply couldn't let go of his need to be right, and it cost him his entire empire. So, looking at your own life right now, what is the modern equivalent of a golden city in your life?
Think about it.
Is it a specific career trajectory you've built your entire identity around? Is it a long-term relationship where you stubbornly refuse to admit fault during an argument? Is it a professional reputation that you are desperately trying to protect at all costs, maybe even covering up small mistakes to maintain the illusion of perfection?
We all have one.
Take a hard look at that beautiful, glittering thing you've built. Are you currently risking burning it to the absolute ground simply because you refuse to let go of your own ego? Think about that hostile room. Think about where your true power lies. Until next time, keep diving deep.